All right, I call the meeting to order, being 6:30. Bills and manifests are going around. Don't think we need any need for a non-public session at the beginning today. Nope. We'll jump right into any opening public comment. Anybody like to take this opportunity to address the board? No. All right. This will be quick then. Any board members wish to take this opportunity to address the board? Seeing none, we will close the
Sounded a long slot.
public comment. On to business. We have a packet starting on page 3 of the minutes of our last public meeting on July 20th.
Motion to approve. What did he say? Minutes from July 20th.
July 20th, yep.
There you go.
Second. Any comments or corrections needed to these minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain? Any nays? I'll abstain as well, so it's 202. Wasn't there? Neither. 202?
Does that
Two.
pass?
Yeah.
Those?
It's a majority of the voting members.
Oh,
So,
okay.
the 2 abstentions, it's unanimous, essentially.
I see.
What's that? Yeah, we also have non-public minutes of July 20th, starting on page 10.
Motion to approve. So moved.
I'll second that. Any corrections or discussion on these? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 2 abstentions? All right, minutes are approved. Moving right along, Assistant Superintendent's report.
If you turn to page 11 of your packet, you'll see that you got your 2015-16 determination letter from the state that says the Northwood School District, based on all the data collected, meets the requirements and purposes of the Individuals with Disability Education Act. If you turn to page 12, there's a description of the 4 categories. You get the highest designation possible, which is meets the requirements and purposes. And then if you look down, you'll see your history. You met the requirement from 2011-12 forward, and you needed assistance in 2010 and 2011. I did attach the rubrics. I'll give you my quick data rubric. Is 0s are good, 1s are not good. If you turn to page 13, you can see you got 0s all across the rubric on page 13, page 14, and it looks like you got some 1. So 0 to 2 meets requirements, so you had a score of 1. And that was
IDA, grant management.
Grant manager.
yeah, the final grant report for last year was not submitted exactly on time, but you were reimbursed for it, and it just resulted in a 1. So 0 to 2 meets requirements. Anything above that is 3 to 7 is needs assistance, 8 to 12 needs intervention, and 13 or more is needs substantial intervention. So other than that, 1 reporting thing, and we corrected that. You're in good shape. Any questions?
Anything else you have for us tonight?
For me.
That's Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Rooney at this time? No. All right, we'll let you off the hook then. Ms. Young.
Good evening. First, to start off, I just want to let you all know that we have a team attending Summer Summit at UNH this week. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We have a team of 7 who are going for some high-quality professional development put on by the Department of Education. Dr. Godomsky attended yesterday. Mr. Rooning attended today. And it's been a nice opportunity to get off campus here and have some breakout sessions and have some opportunity over lunch to talk about what we're finding out, and we look forward to bringing it back to our staff in 3 weeks. And just as a reminder, this was a grant that I applied for a few months ago using reallocated Title I money, so it's not using any district funds. In my report, which starts on page 16, I provided a facilities update. There have not been any major renovation projects going on this year, but there have been a few minor repairs and inspections. Mr. Tom and his still smaller than we would like crew have been really working hard to get the building in tip-top shape, and it looks great. Adrian and I walked around with Tom on Tuesday, and it looks fantastic. He's done with all of the major floors and is now working on sort of the sprucing up with refreshing some paint and fixing some drywall issues and things like that. Our fancy new water fountain is installed that fills the bottles, and it's actually been really neat at UNH the last couple of days using the exact same kind of water fountain that we now have here. So that's exciting. It's upstairs. You can't go up there right now, but when the landings are dry, feel free to go take a look. And also, I don't know if you noticed, if you came in the front way, he worked really hard to spruce up the entryway to the school. He painted the bench that's out there, put out a bird bath and a hook that will hang some flowers or a bird feeder on, so the building looks great. I provided a overview of what our professional development days for 17-18 will look like. Obviously, these will be more fleshed out as time goes on, but these are what we know about for now. So the first day, we will start with breakfast. We'll have a brief staff meeting. Staff will have their contractual 3 hours of classroom preparation time. Paraprofessionals will receive professional development on Medicaid, Medicare, whatever it is, Medicaid. It's hot. And we'll have an opportunity to meet with their special education teachers as well as their regular ed teachers. And then we will finish the day with a faculty meeting to go over some of our to be attended to this year type stuff. The second day that we're back, educational consultant and author Pete Hall will be coming in to do a full day workshop with us, really working on building teachers' capacity through use of data, self-reflection, and collaboration. Part of that was also that each staff member received a copy of his book. So staff members got that on during the last week of school and have had the summer to read it. We're ready for the workshop. On September 1st, we will have Dibble's Next training. We're transitioning from Ames Web to Dibble's Next, so we'll have training for that, and we'll work on curriculum. October 6th, we'll have Go Math come in to do training with K through 3. We'll also do curriculum work, and some of our teachers and paras will be at the NEA workshop. March 23rd is the SAU 44 day, and then in May, Pete will return for sort of a culminating workshop. I provided a list of committees for 17-18. There's not really anything new or different on here than what we've had this year. Membership will be determined once school starts. Staff members are welcome to stay on committees that they were already on. They can switch if they wish, and then obviously we need to get new staff into committees. The building leadership team met for a retreat last Tuesday, and that was a nice opportunity for all of us to get together after some time to recuperate from a busy year. So we reflected on last year, set some goals for this coming year, and really thought about the role of the team within the school and why we exist as a team and what work do we do. So I provided a draft of our statement of purpose for you. And then the last thing I have is an overview of this year's master schedule. You have sort of a bisected one in your packet, and then if you want to pass the full living color version around. So some changes were made based both on staffing, class size, as well as some things that we had identified as needs for this coming year. We engaged in a fairly prolonged process of collecting feedback from staff on what they liked and valued in our previous schedule, what they did not like, what they wished for. The building leadership team reviewed that. A small committee was formed, volunteer committee. We tried to be representative. We worked on a draft. We sent that back out to the staff and the building leadership team. So it went through a few iterations, and this is what we came up with. A few of the major changes are that we've condensed a couple of the WIN blocks so that we have multiple grades at a time. With 9 grade levels, it was really hard to have a separate WIN block. There's just not enough minutes in the day to do that. So we want to honor the important work that happens at the younger level and have them have dedicated WIN blocks, and then starting in grade 3, we have 2 grades at a time, which also is a nice opportunity for kids to go up into another grade or down into a lower grade if that's the instructional level that they need. We'll have more of a traveling intervention team where our special educators will work with more than just the grade levels that they're case managing. So for the most part, it gives us more adults working with kids and the opportunity to have smaller groups. There's time for the reading interventionists to go into the core instruction for the younger grades, which will be a nice support. We put in as much common planning time for hallway teams as we possibly could. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7, 8 all have common planning times. With the grades that have a lot of sections, that was much harder to do, and we weren't able to do it for everybody. One thing that's neat is that as part of the core instruction for K through 2, there will be a time of day that everybody can be kind of shuffled between classrooms. So again, really working to personalize learning so that kids can be with other kids of their instructional level, and those groups will be flexible as kids advance through their skills. And we built in some additional time for professional learning committee meetings or community meetings. In the past year, we had PLC meetings once a month after school, which really was not sufficient. So this year, every 2 weeks, teams will have time 1 day a week from 1:30 to 2:15, where they'll leave sub-plans for a related arts teacher to take over, and they will go have a chance to meet. And this is nice too, because each grade level will have a meeting on their own day, so then Adrienne and the curriculum director, to be determined, and I can get in there and facilitate those groups and support them. And that was a direct response to staff feedback through some of our surveys this year, was that more time to meet together and collaborate was appreciated. And then you know about the change to 7 and 8 already in terms of having 5 core classes. So that is the master schedule in a nutshell. And I believe that is all I have.
Ask you about the building leadership team. Has that been opened up for new staff, or is it the same team as last year, or how's that working?
It's the same team as last year. We do have a couple openings based on people leaving or opting out.
Yeah.
We're sort of still working on our constitution. You know, I think that there's benefit to term limits, but I don't want term limits that are the same, because then I'll have a brand new team in a year or two. So that's something that's still in progress. One of the things that we did at the meeting was to set goals and to talk about the informal evaluation of the role on the building leadership team, so that we can start to have those conversations that if it's not a good match, or if there is a different stakeholder group that needs to be represented, that starts the conversation about moving in and out.
Any other questions from Ms. Young?
So I know we're going to talk about buses in a little while. That hasn't impacted the schedule at all so far?
Not yet, but I have thought ahead of some moves that we could make if we needed to.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All set? All right, thank you. All right, starting on page 22, we have 2 policies to have a first reading of. Scott, did you want to give us an introduction of these, or Scott? Okay.
I'll go for it.
So these two policies, we put together an admin team folder for an admin retreat with pertinent policies in it. When I was putting those policies together, I noticed you have two policies that needed to be updated. So I had Nancy draft them off the model, and then Bree and Ms. Young and I discussed them this evening. So if there's any changes you want to make to those policies, just let us know, but they are boilerplate student sexual harassment policies, and then just an updated restraint and seclusion policy that I'd like to go for first reading, so I can at least put it in the admin folder, so Jocelyn and Adrian have those to present to the staff at the beginning of the year. If you would jump to page 35, I did have Ms. Gadker leave in the changes to the restraint policy. The title of the policy has changed, seclusion added to the definitions. Circumstances in which restraint may be used is amended and redrafted in its entirety. There's an authorization of monitoring of an extended restraint is deleted. Circumstance in which seclusion may be used, prohibition of dangerous restraint techniques has been amended, and reporting requirements and parental notifications has been added. We already have the forms that support that, so we're in good shape there, but there's just been some changes to that policy legally.
Thank you. So would anybody like to make a motion?
Motion to move to
First reading?
first reading policies JBAA and JKAA.
Second. Any discussion on these? Pretty straightforward to me as well. All right, all in favor of moving these to first reading?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstaining? One abstention. So these will be moved to first reading, we'll see them next meeting, or second reading?
And what I'll do is I'll put them in the admin team folder as a draft right now.
Yep.
Just
Dr. Grumpsey?
All right, I'll start on page 36 with the personnel report. First thing, the curriculum director, you can cross that name off. That person has decided to remain in the position that they're in. We have, I say we, Jocelyn and Scott especially, and myself have jumped in and done many interviews of curriculum directors. We've had 3 people so far that have, for various reasons, after interviews and further thought, taken other positions or remained in their position. So it's a challenge. We still have a number of people that are being interviewed, so we're still hopeful that we'll be able to fill the position, but at this point, the interview process continues.
Dr. Kavanaugh still working with us currently?
Not officially. I have been in touch with her, and she says she's happy to help. She has, perhaps some scheduling conflicts, but she'll do what we can if we need her, or what she can if we need her.
Would she stay on part-time in the fall if you weren't able to find someone? Have you had that discussion?
Right. I mean, I think that's what she's saying is, there are some scheduling concerns for her, but she is willing to help out.
Okay.
So we're still in process. We'll bring you an update as we go. The second is a nomination of Viola Canella for food service clerk. It's the position that we had last year, handles free and reduced lunches. And you can see on page 40, it's $15 an hour, not to exceed 660 hours for the year.
Do you know how many hours she had last year, was it in that ballpark?
Didn't exceed, but I'm trying to remember. I'd have to check how many total.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
Is she still working for the company, Fresh Fix?
She's not. Actually, she's working for the SAU now. She's our new bookkeeper.
She's your new what?
Bookkeeper. A part-time bookkeeper position. So this position fits in very well with that position.
Yeah. She'll probably be right at the office, right? All right, all in favor of the election of Ms. Canella as food service clerk?
Aye.
The other is a personnel report that I handed out to you under separate cover, and that's nomination of Cynthia Imperio as the library aide.
Move to elect Cynthia Imperio as library aide.
Second.
Any discussion on this? This is under the para contract, I assume.
Yes.
Anything else? All in favor of the election of Cynthia Imperio?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries.
The only other thing I have for discussion tonight is an update on the transportation that's on your agenda. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to wait? No.
Yeah, we can do it now.
Okay.
Back to the committee reports.
All right, why don't I start first on the agreement that I passed out to you with Northwood School District and Dale Transportation, Student Transportation of New Hampshire. It's pretty much just what we talked about in the last meeting. The bonus that we talked about, a $3,000 sign-on bonus, you'll see on the second part of this has been included. A couple of things for discussion on that. One of the concerns that they had were they didn't want to do a sign-on bonus and within their company and steal bus drivers from their own contracts. So Barrington coming over or Nottingham coming over, that was a concern. So in this contract, they put down that this is for new employees to Dale Transportation, and it is not eligible for current drivers of Dale Transportation. So it's just so they're not stealing their own drivers. So any of the new drivers that are coming in that were with Northwood Transportation that are now with Dale Transportation, they are eligible for that $3,000. Anybody that's trained that comes into a full-time route, they also will be eligible for the $3,000, which is basically what we talked about last time. The other thing that in here, when they put this together, we talked about the first portion at the beginning of the year, second portion at Christmas holiday, and then in here they put the third being paid at the beginning of the following school year. I would recommend that we have that changed before we sign it and say at the end of this school year. That's what we had talked about originally, and basically we do not have a contract with them for next year. So I would encourage us just to pay out the bonus as we had said in its completion by the end of the year.
Didn't we talk about giving the third installment to encourage them to come back next year, though?
We had talked about that, but we don't have a contract with them for next year. So, and we are putting in our contract that we're going to be paying the bonus. So for all intents and purposes, we're paying the bonus to get Northwood drivers. We're not paying the bonus to get Dale Transportation drivers.
Sure.
So that's why I would recommend that we pay it all out by the end of the school year.
So you want to have it say with the third installment being paid at the end of the current school year?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's my understanding that Dale provided a $1,500 bonus to its drivers. Is this going to be on top of the $1,500 bonus?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'd have to get clarification from Kelly Doby. My assumption is that it is, that we are doing this extra on top of what they would pay, but I would have to ask Kelly Doby for clarification. I would assume yes, but
That's my assumption.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. So I will clarify that with them.
Okay.
What's the difference in training between a provider bus driver and a full-size bus driver?
CDL.
So the providers don't have to have a CDL?
It's not over 25,000 pounds or something like that. Don't need a CDL license for it.
But do they have to have some part of bus driving?
The school bus doesn't need,
They still have to have the bus driver training and the certification as a bus driver.
but they don't need the CDL.
So if there was a small bus driver that works for a provider and he wanted to work for Northwood, Dale, and drive in Northwood, would his training be the full length? Would it be a little less? Or do you know?
I don't do the training for the bus drivers. However, my understanding is that if you're a certified bus driver, whether you're a certified bus driver in Massachusetts or a certified bus driver for provider, that shortens what you need to do for certification. You still have to go through, if you change companies, you still have to go through, I'll say a refresher course or whatever it is, but my understanding is that it's much easier than the full training starting from
This is a
scratch.
current provider bus driver. So I have a name, if you want, at the end of the meeting, I'll give it to you and you can call him, but I think he can be talked into it. He's a provider driver.
Yep. Give me the name and the number, I'll be glad to call him.
So, one of the questions I have is, it says the bonus will be paid for the first 6 full-time driving employees. I know we were looking for 7 routes at one point. Are you
Well, we've got,
happy with 6? Is that the idea, or?
we budgeted 7 buses.
Yep.
We ran 6 all last year,
With no
uh,
problem.
with no problem, so,
Well, long ride, so.
I would not vote personally for 7 buses.
so at the present
It's a good
time,
opportunity
we're
to
looking
cut
for
down
6 full runs.
Tried several years ago.
That's what we're trying to do right now, 6 full lines. All right, the other question I have was, the terminal, is that on 107?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not too far away. At these rates, does it come out to what we budgeted for?
A little less.
It's actually gonna come out less.
Even including the $3,000 bonuses?
Yes,
Great, good.
which is not a great, it's gonna be closer than we think, though, because as I go through the next piece, we're gonna be talking about additional supervision with dropout times and things like that, so it's,
Well, maybe the temporary on that, though, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah. But the savings that you're gonna, like, we've only got 3 drivers right now.
yeah.
So the savings you're gonna have with running only 3 buses is gonna be offset some with paying additional supervision. However, we do have 7 buses budgeted, and odds are we're gonna use 6, so that's another piece that, within our budget.
I think it should be done in non-public and not necessarily or on the side, but I think you should explain to Keith how in the world that can happen, that we could spend less this year than last year.
We do that, I could hook up with
Meaning,
them.
if you remember, the extra hour use of the bus was gonna cost us a lot less than a whole bus. I think there's a lot of ears listening, but I think that's something that you should explain to Keith, how that
Yep.
can be.
Yeah, I'll talk to
So
him.
that
I'm
he
gonna talk to
understood
him.
that. That was
Sure.
a very interesting thing, in my opinion.
Yep.
Okay, so would you like this to be approved with the amendment that we talked about?
Yeah, if
So
you
that we
could
can do
approve it
that?
with the amendment, I would take care of that and get it signed immediately, so.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so this is approving this to be signed with the amendment of, on the last paragraph there, being paid at the beginning of the following school year will be changed to paid at the end of the current school year,
Correct.
right? Good with that? You catch that? Any other discussion on this time? Good, good. All right, all in favor of approving me to sign this contract once it gets done?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope.
So I
Motion
do
carries.
have lots of questions about how we're gonna handle the parents, the students.
Yeah, I guess.
So I assume we're gonna talk about the suggestions that Dr. Godomsky handed out.
Please.
Yeah, presently, what we have is, we need 6 buses for running all of our routes like we did last year. Presently, we've got 3 drivers that are ready to go. Those 3 drivers and Betsy have been doing a wonderful job during the summer, meeting with Kelly Doby over at Dale Transportation, going through the bus stops, the routes, and trying to most efficiently utilize 3 buses to cover 6 buses, which is a huge task. We have 3 to 4 people in training right now. I think that there's 2 people in training, one's on vacation, and I've got a certified person from Massachusetts that has expressed interest but hasn't stopped over to see Kelly Doby yet. So that's why I put 3 to 4 people in training.
So that could be 4 full buses, though, to start the year, if that person,
That's a big if at
it's
this
an
point.
if, right?
So, right now, we've got 3 buses. Hopefully, if everything works out well with training, we'll have our 6 buses rolling by the end of October. I would love to say that we can do it earlier. Kelly Doby is pushing people as hard as they can with the process to try to get people trained and through the state and what they need to do there, but by the end of October. As soon as we get additional drivers ready, we will restructure the routes to try to shorten them and make them closer to what we had in the past. So that's kind of the process. Some of the facts about 3 bus runs. What we're going to have to do is do the Co-Brown runs and also do double runs at the elementary school. So pick up the kids with 3 buses, drop them off, go back out, pick up the kids with 3 buses, drop them off at the elementary school. And in the afternoon, do the exact same thing. So that's why some of these times are not good. If we do that, if we provide high school transportation and we provide transportation like we always have for the elementary school, that means 2 buses are going to be dropping off at Co-Brown at about 7 a.m., which means we're going to need about 15 to 20 minutes of supervision there. And then in the afternoon, they're not going to be picking up until about 3:45, which means we need about an hour's worth of supervision there. The Co-Brown East run is going to be about an hour and 10 minutes. The West run is about 50 minutes. So, you know, that's with a drop-off of 7 o'clock. If we were to drop off at 6:50 at Co-Brown, it would help our elementary runs, but then you're going to have some kids getting on the bus for high school at 5:50. So, I mean, exactly, that's not great. So assuming that we drop off at 7 a.m., if you go down elementary school, and again, they're still working hard on these routes to get the exact timing down. I'm going to meet with Kelly Doby and Jocelyn and Dave Smith on Tuesday morning. By then, Kelly's thought she could get the routes pretty firm so we can make the adjustments we need with supervision and with scheduling and things like that. 3 elementary bus runs, doing 2 runs each. You'll see the drop-off of the first 3 runs at the elementary school would be approximately 7:45 to 7:50. And then going back out, picking the other kids up for 3 of the second runs, which brings them in 8:15 to 8:35. So that's my biggest concern right there, is we've got over a half an hour of instructional time that we're going to have to adjust the schedule somehow to lessen that impact. Dismissal in the afternoon. The first run, we need to back up. Usually we start dismissing at 2:15, 2:20. We're going to have to back that up to 2:10. And the second run coming back in will be picking up for dismissal about 2:55 to 3:10 depending. So that means we need an additional 20 to 30 minutes of supervision there. So now we can pick some of that time up with teaching staff, and then as we approach the 2:40, 2:45, we'll probably have to do kind of a mass second dismissal, dismiss to the cafeteria or to the gym, and then as the buses come in, have supervision there of maybe 2, 3 people, depending on the number of kids, and then dismiss from there. So that's it in a nutshell of what we have right now. Points for consideration down the bottom. We can drop off at 6:50 a.m. at Co-Brown. That just means that you can see the pickup time for those high school kids. It's going to get really, really early, and that's obviously not great. You could eliminate high school transportation altogether. Obviously, if you do that, that means that the elementary runs now could be backed up drastically, so the first drop-off could be closer to the 7:25, and the second drop-off run would be closer to 8 o'clock. So you'll see that, we could pick up kind of that half hour there with the second run. Obviously, that means no transportation for Co-Brown students. I'm not suggesting that, I'm just saying that that's a point for consideration. The other thing that the drivers and Dale Transportation are working on are group stops for Co-Brown. Can we do 5 group stops that would free up 10 to 15 minutes on that run rather than stopping at every door? They're looking at that right now, trying to figure that out. I don't know whether that'll save 10 minutes or whether it won't save much time at all.
I think they
I don't
do
know.
that already for
I
high school.
really think that's the answer.
It-
I think it's the answer in K through 8 too, to be honest with you. In order to save a little bit. We by law, I think was it a mile, that they could be expected to
Yep.
walk up to a mile to a bus stop, and I don't necessarily think that will be necessary very often, but I just, the gentleman that his kid walking 200 feet, it was going to ruin their life. I will never forget that man, that just 200 feet. I will always remember that man. Every time I see him, it just comes back into my mind. And so, to me, the time on the bus is one thing, but we need to get as many, and the only way to do that is group bus stops.
Yeah, this is a bunch of poor solutions, so these are
Well,
the
it
best
is,
ones
but-
we have, so,
That's the least of the poor, the best of the poor solutions.
yeah.
Especially for high school, but I think in some cases, that could work very well for the K through 8. And I'm only talking in cases 200-300 feet. And parents are more than welcome and should go with their kids.
We'll try to do that. I'll suggest Kelly take a serious look at that. And again, I don't know, even at the elementary school, whether that means we save 5 minutes or we save 30 minutes. I'm not sure, but I'll have her look at that as well and
Well, it's going to save some minutes.
stack it up
I mean, it
as much
takes
as we
time to
can.
stop a bus, open
you're
the
right.
door, be safe, etc. The other thing I'm interested is, so who are you thinking about as far as because I do think until this irons out, we're going to have a need of supervision in the morning and in the afternoon.
Yep.
So who are you thinking to do that?
Well, I've started that discussion with Jocelyn. We wanted to see what the decision was of the board tonight on the transportation. We will know clearer next Tuesday as to exactly the amount of time that we have. At that particular point, we'll probably look at, see if paraprofessionals, if there's a couple of them that want to assume additional duties, that we can extend and pay their hourly rate. And then at Co-Brown, the same thing. They're going to have to, I've already talked to Dave Smith, and if need be, he's going to talk to his paras and see if there's anybody that wants to take that on, and then we will just reimburse for that.
I agree with all of that. I just think you need to set a fee, whatever that's going to be, an hourly rate. And open it up to any of the teachers or paras that want to do that. But I don't, if you start talking teacher per diem or per hour, it's a lot different than paras. And paras changes quite dramatically.
Well, I would say that we need to explore the paraprofessionals, because some of the supervision is going to be under the teacher's contract. Not all of it, but some of that is going to be under the time when they're obligated to be in the building anyway. I'm talking about that extra time that falls beyond the paraprofessional and teaching contract.
Which is also what I'm talking about. Have we, I would assume, opened up some kind of a dialogue with the teachers' union? I mean, there are changes here.
Well, there are, other than supervision, there aren't changes
Oh,
here.
okay.
It is going to impact, obviously, if they get a group of kids at 7:45 or 7:50, and another group of kids at 8:20 to 8:25, obviously that half hour falls under their contract, where they're contractually obligated to be here teaching, but we will have to adjust the schedule, whether it's part of the wind block or something like that, so those kids are not missing, a core instructional piece.
Do you think it'll be possible for them to do like half the class that's there in the morning and then the ones that stay later? Actually, the ones that stay later may get picked up though, right?
No, see, that's not going to work either, because in the afternoon, it's flip-flopped, because we're trying to get the closest run out
Right.
first,
Sure.
which,
No, I gotcha, yeah.
and I'd love to say that we could pick up, K3 on the first run and 4-8 on the second run, but it doesn't work.
Right, right.
They're spread all over the place, so.
Never happened.
That would make, if we could start them, if those grades could separate and start and finish, then you could use that time, it's all instructional as opposed to, having people watch them.
No.
I don't think it was-
See, so we're going to explore the paraprofessionals, and it would be just an extension of their contract hourly wage. If we need to go into staff members, then, I would set it at $15 or $20 an hour to cover, but, we'll.
Any sense from Dale on an estimate on what the changes would look like if they did group stops? Like, when will we know that?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Has there been any traction with talking with the other schools in the district that have buses going through town?
Well,
See if they can pick up.
I did
kids?
explore that. Nottingham buses coming up through, for each of the districts, it would mean backing up their start time, picking the kids up, and some of them have lengthy routes already. Nottingham buses coming up through, their numbers are fairly full to begin with, because that's one of the first things I thought of. The Stratford runs are, I thought we could utilize some of their buses because their elementary starts an hour later than ours does. But the way they have two staff members that do a Co-Brown run, and then their staff members, they work in food service and have to be in the building.
Sure.
And then they have other runs that do the Co-Brown, and then they go out to do their elementary runs. So they really don't have buses available to do that. Because I thought of that too. I was trying to piece that together.
Yeah, I was just wondering if some of the cost sharing might be a way to get them to.
Yeah, I
Against them
think
at
it's
all.
just a logistic thing that's,
Yeah.
I was hopeful that would
Yeah.
work, but it's not going to. I already talked to Jocelyn briefly about, and again, this is another piece next Tuesday that we're going to expand on, but we may have to reconfigure the drop-off routes here, because by doing 2 runs in the morning, we need nothing in those buses' way when they come in. They need to have a clear shot to come in, drop off, get out of here. So we're thinking now possibly of restructuring the parent drop-off to come down the side street, in and drop off at the side of the building here, and then out in the front. And when that first wave of buses comes, those 3 buses, halt the traffic, get them in, empty them off, and then they can go. And I know some parents are going to be sitting there for 5 or 10 minutes, but we need to get those 3 buses in. And that way, we can leave that open for the buses, and we can also hopefully get people off of Route 4
Yeah, have them come down Bow Street. Makes a lot
down
of
the
sense,
other
a lot
way.
more room.
So,
Yeah.
Traffic guard,
what's that?
have you talked to the traffic guard? You're gonna need him more hours.
We have not talked to him yet. Again, after next Tuesday, we'll have a good handle on what we need, and
We having a meeting next Tuesday night?
we really don't need to. I mean, your decisions tonight basically are, do you want to eliminate high school transportation? That would be one decision if you wanted to do that. The group stops we're going to look into. The other would be to back up Co-Brown from 7 o'clock to 6:50. I think that's too early for anybody to get on the bus at 5:50.
I do too, but I don't have any answers to those questions, so I know what all the answers, all the options are. That's why I wondered about a meeting.
We can have a meeting next week if you'd
I'm
like.
most interested in the group stops, that's,
Or any board members can come to that meeting and be part of that.
Yeah, I think that'd be a
If
good
all the
idea.
board members want to, then we can post it as a meeting.
When is that?
What are we on, Jocelyn? Tuesday at 10, is that right?
Tuesday at 10, yep.
Tuesday at 10 o'clock.
I encourage anyone who's interested to go to that meeting. And, we could post it, so everybody can go.
How many board members are interested in coming?
Me.
I won't be here.
Okay, so I don't have to post it. Just come on down at 10 o'clock and,
At your place or here?
at the SAU.
I assume that as the drivers come online, we'll, one by one, be able to,
As soon as we get a driver, we'll restructure the routes.
like, one at a time, probably, or whatever. It's just gonna be a matter of, the times are just gonna change for the route, right? The route's gonna stay the same, I would think, right?
Perhaps not, especially if we're doing group stops.
Okay.
Once we get 6 on, they'll look a lot like they were last year.
Okay.
But until that point, they could be restructured.
Okay. I guess
So-
I'm just, yeah, anything to keep it consistent would be good.
Yes, it would.
Parents, but, yeah, I understand. We're under a lot of constraints.
So again, we're hopeful that worst-case scenario is that we're on 3 buses until the end of October. If we get people trained earlier than that, we'll restructure earlier than that.
I know this all preempts it, but remember that we told the number of people in the Gaviot area that we would consider reversing that bus run. So when we get to that point, we should consider that. There are some benefits.
Something to keep in mind.
So at this point, that's where we're at.
All right,
Could be worse.
thank you.
And if anybody knows of another bus driver out there,
So if you
Bring
could
him
let us know when you talk to Dale about what the bonus structure is going to be, just so that we can maybe publicize that.
yep.
Because if it's $4,500, that might attract some attention.
But I think I read it's going to stop when you have 6, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The bonus. So
Time-
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, maybe it's,
the 3 are getting the bonus. And so if you have, how many more? 3 to 4 more, you said.
Yep.
So that's the end of the bonus.
Yep.
maybe it'll be-
We
That's
said,
if they
we
make it
said
through.
full-time routes, so.
Yeah.
Now, the other piece that is still in discussion is the co-curricular activities. With 3 buses and 3 drivers, it's virtually impossible, especially in the fall season, where we have games starting at 4 o'clock.
3:45.
3:45, you can see that that's obviously not going to work. If we can get a driver that's separate from our route drivers, then we might be able to pick those up. Again, after next Tuesday, I'll talk to Dale Transportation, see if there's somebody that is interested in doing that. If not, we're going to need to look at the games we have. I believe we have 6 away games or 7 away games total.
For soccer, and then another 5 or 6 for cross-country.
So I've also got a phone call out to provider. We've been playing phone tag to see if there's a possibility of one of those buses to take a co-curricular trip. We may need to convince other schools to play 2 home games this year, or cancel some games. But, you know, we're going to do everything we can to try to creatively get them off.
Can parents bring kids on these things?
We're going to have to review our policy on parent transportation, and if we get to that, we'll see, that'll be a board discussion as to, you know, whether that's feasible or not.
May well be that's something we want to look into soon-ish.
Yep.
Thank you.
So to get information out to parents, I'm planning on writing something up tomorrow, basically what I told you tonight, and encouraging parents to keep an eye on our website. We'll post them as soon as we can. Obviously, there's kind of a week lag to the newspaper. So if you can get that in the paper, I'll send it to you. We'll send it out to all the parents on our email blast. And then as we get the definite routes, middle of next week, we'll send that out again. We'll put that in the paper for the following week, and we'll get it on the website. But I just want people, as much as possible, to be aware that, you know, this is coming, and literally daily, they're working through the bus routes to try to make them as quick as possible.
So I'm just thinking about the bus routes in my area, on what they were and what they could be. I live at the far end of Northwood on the Deerfield line. So everyone on Deerfield and Welch Road, we've always had to bring our kids to 43. That leaves Upper Deerfield, Lower Deerfield, Old Mountain Road, and Lucas Pond. Keeping within a mile, any of the kids on those roads could be brought to 43 and just make a straight run through there.
My guess is what we're going to find is that once we put these out there, that some of the parents, many of the parents, more of the parents are going to be wanting to drop their kids off for 8 weeks.
I think you're right, yeah. I mean, and
You know, I don't have a great answer to, you know, I had a few parent phone calls already, and everybody was very nice and understanding about, you know, we're doing the best we can, and, you know, one of them said 8:25 is not great dropping the kids off, and I said, you're absolutely right, it's not. So I would imagine that, you know, there's going to be many more parents dropping off, and maybe that will back up the times a little bit, but it really depends on which parents at which side of town that do that, you know. You've got kids spread all over the place, so it's
As far as the
tricky.
supervising, that gap of time before classes.
Please go up to the microphone.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure how all this works. As far as like needing that gap of supervision time covered, is that something like if a parent were to, you know, go through the fingerprinting or whatever that you have to do to go on a field trip, if they were to pass all of that, could they volunteer to cover that time? Or
I think for liability and consistency's sake, and I think it's probably something that we're going to want to cover internally. I appreciate very much parental volunteers, but I think that under the circumstances, with the number of changes that these kids are going to go through, I think that whatever we can control internally, that would be my first preference.
sure, okay.
Anything else with transportation? All right, good luck. Keep it up.
Thanks. I'll keep you up to date
Yes,
as we
please
go
do.
through it.
Please do. All right, we skipped by the committee report, so we'll go back to that. Has there been any committee meetings?
Policy committee met today. We will have 4 policies coming to you in next meeting.
Okay.
Meeting after.
Meeting after.
Need to do their readings and their other ones first.
Oh, that's right. Right. They're coming.
Facilities, have you guys
We're
been
meeting
together?
on Wednesday.
Okay, to go over the CIP.
Didn't you say Tuesday?
Yeah, I did. It's Wednesday.
Okay.
My bus meeting's Tuesday.
Gotcha.
what time?
8.
We did have a strategic planning meeting. We're just continuing.
I did not.
That's right, you weren't there.
I wasn't
so-
at that one.
Ah, so I have to remember what we did. It was mostly we're going through and trying to set oh, you were there. Help me out. Setting our vision, right? We're coming up with what were the statements? It was just the vision? Was that the main focus of
It's a
it?
vision statement, yeah.
So that's continuing.
Did we get the survey results?
We did get the survey results
Did.
too, yes.
Did he email those out?
No, I think you
Handed
handed
them
them out. So we'll have to get you that.
Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
seen those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other committees I'm not thinking of that may have met? No? Okay. Moving on to our parking lot items. Most of this stuff is, oh, nominations for grade 8 advisor. I'm just going to ask about that since we didn't.
I do have one. I have a stipend sheet. It just hasn't been processed through the SAU yet, so that
Okay.
should be in the next packet.
Okay, great.
The facilities committee is gonna discuss the
This is gonna-
CIP plan on Wednesday?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. And so that's going to cover the front entryway, hallway steps, and ceiling, I imagine.
And
So,
Joe asked me to make sure that you get in touch
Yes.
with him, because he's waiting on you to
Yes.
get that on their
So
schedule.
I did meet with Joe about meeting with the selectmen. He thinks we could meet one of their meetings in September. They meet on the, I think, first and third, or second and fourth Tuesday. Oh, wait, I hope I wrote it down. And we talked about some of the things that we could discuss together as a group. One of the things was maybe sharing, so I'm just going to throw these out here as stuff we're brainstorming about, we could discuss with the selectmen, is fuel and oil, sharing the cost with that. I don't know how possible that is, but maybe we can get a better rate if we, a larger thing to bargain with. And the rec committee would maybe like maybe better access to school, or work on some policies for how we can get maybe some of the community members in here to use the facilities more. Things along those lines. So the selectmen have meetings on September 12th and September 26th. Does that work for people? If we want to go to their meeting? And
Joe and I will be out of town on the 12th.
the 12th, so how about September 26th? Will people be available for that?
Should be.
Let me check my schedule real quick. So the 26th would be a Tuesday. Do you know what time is it 6 o'clock? Yeah, thank you. Probably, I imagine at the town hall is where we would meet them. That's where they meet, right? So,
Last time was here.
right, so it
that's
makes sense for us to go there to do that. And it's conveniently not on a week that we have school board meetings, so we won't be doubling up meetings. So, that would
So
be
I'll
good.
post that as a joint meeting with the school board?
Let's talk to the selectmen first,
Okay,
make
let
sure
me
that
know,
that
and then
date
I'll-
works for them,
Okay.
and I'll let you know. Yeah, we'll do that. So
Okay.
it'll be 9/26. All right. Looking at
I
our,
got a
yeah,
question on that.
yeah.
Should that be a special meeting or actually a meeting with the selectmen during the time of their selectmen meeting? Because, I mean, there's a lot of other things on the agenda that they're gonna have. So I don't know how long it took last time to have this discussion. I don't know if we just want to have a meeting with the selectmen and just post it that way, or actually join their meeting.
I would just post it as a meeting with the selectmen, and they can post their own meeting however they want to. That way, if you've got a quorum, which I assume you will, going to the meeting, it would just be a meeting with the selectmen.
Right.
They'll put
it'd
us
be
at
up-
the beginning.
Yeah, it'll be up to them to put us on the agenda where it makes sense for them, but yeah, we can talk to them about that. All right, school board timeline, August, we got the update, workshop of committees, we got that. Update on expected enrollments, do we have any data on that yet? Is that just part of our,
We've got monthly enrollment report for the second meeting of the month, so we'll make sure that we have the anticipated enrollments.
great. Plans for NTA school board lunch on the first day of teachers. I think that's
We're
some-
having it? What do you want to know?
Are we having it? What are you having? Okay. Do we, I think typically the school board contributes
Reimburses.
some money.
Yeah. Yeah,
Is
so
that already in the budget?
We generally buy it and then you guys reimburse.
Okay, so we're all set for that.
Yeah.
All right. Just want to make sure. The stuff's on the list, the stuff's on the list just so that we don't forget things, you know, as they come up. And contacting the unions to start negotiations. We don't
Not
need to do
necessary.
that, not necessary, unless we have any changes that we're thinking about, right? Okay. Future agenda items. So our next meeting is on August 17th? Get that right?
Yep.
I imagine we'll get a transportation update.
Yes.
Anything else? CIP update? Right, because the facilities committee will meet by then, so a CIP, maybe even a approval or something. I don't know. We'll see
I
what we
mean, we
get.
should get a decent amount done.
Yep. Okay. Is there anything else people want on the agenda for the next meeting in 2 weeks? Okay. If anything comes up, let me know. We can put it on up to a week before. So August 17th is our next regular board meeting. August 28th, we have a joint board meeting at the SAU office at 6:15. September 7th is our next regular board meeting after that.
When did you say the strategic planning meeting was for August?
26, I think.
Yes, that's the retreat. So that I have
Is
that.
that what time?
I don't have the time. I think it was like 9 to
9 to noon or
noon
something?
or something along those lines.
That sounds
We'll
right.
have to. I'll get Joe to email out everybody to remind everybody about that.
9 to 5, 9 to 7, something like that.
Yeah, 9 to 9.
Yeah.
I don't know which number, but I think the bottom one.
Okay. Sorry.
It's one of those, just call and ask.
Those aren't even close.
War dial. Just tell
Well, the
everyone.
6 and the 7, I looked at them,
No,
were
the number, hold that
transposed. It
number.
was either.
All right.
Just a minute.
Is there any closing public comment? No.
See the spelling of his name.
Any board members like to take this opportunity to address the board? No. Cramp. We will close the public comment period. Do we need a non-public session to end this?
We do not.
We do not, so we just have to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I,
All in favor?
yes.
Can you drop me off at 10?